how much of a difference would it be if there was no parties at all?
No matter how good your policies are and stuff, it's always going to be a popularity contest.
This usually has ripple effects for decades. We're still living with the Reagan coalition.
Yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Totem. I'm your host, Monico Carrillo, and of course, like always, we got Eric with us.
How's it going? Yeah, I'm your other co-host, Eric Carrillo. And guys, just remember, we're on YouTube and Spotify. So if you guys like the conversations we're having, want us to keep bringing on more guests, just make sure to like the video, and also be sure to smash that subscribe button. So that way you can be notified every single time we got a new guest up, by hitting that bell too. And yeah, if we bring you guys value, if you learn something, if we made you laugh, made you think, the only fee we have here on the show is to share it with at least one other person. That's all we ask of you guys, just to share it with one other person if you like what you're listening to. And a huge shout out, I don't know if you can see the shirt I got going on, but a huge shout out to Gamos Design for hooking us up with these t-shirts. Just if you're out there needing any marketing material for you or your business or just personal matters, just be sure to hit them up and be sure to tell them to use code TOTEM. You'll receive 10% off for your order.
Cool. Yeah, so the guests we have today, we love all our guests, but I'm a big supporter of the woman empowerment movement, the badass woman, and today we got one. So Scout, welcome to the show.
Quite the introduction. Thank you.
That's great. So how are you doing? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's definitely been a whirlwind of a week because of the election on Tuesday. So in my world, that's like Christmas or maybe even worse, Halloween.
So for the people who don't really know who you are, can you just give like a quick little spiel about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, this is always a tough question for me to answer because I'm honestly like a Renaissance woman, if you will. I love learning about nearly everything, but what I really focus on is marketing and branding, graphic design, and I focus in the areas of politics, which is where I started out, and I've started to not segue, but also include businesses, including like scientifically oriented businesses. So I have a very unique perspective that I bring to any industry that I market or brand that I actually think is really not found, in Colorado at least. And so I've been working for about, 8 years, but I've honestly been doing it way longer than that, starting honestly back in middle school. I started doing video editing like you guys do, or just even making a poster that was super unique. It just started there. So, and in college I studied anthropology. That's what I reference as my first love. Honestly, it's amazing, and it is the foundation for everything that I do.
So kind of who I guess if we kind of go back, you said you started doing that. So have you always kind of been that way, since young, kind of trying to do that stuff? You said middle school time?
Yeah, and it was interesting with anthropology. That really started when I was 5 in a very morbid kind of way that I swear to God is not like a Jeffrey Dahmer intro.
There you go, perfect.
Because I specifically focused on forensic anthropology because as a kid I was super fascinated by bones. And I'm sure my mom at some point was should I get her into therapy? But she seems okay. I don't know. Because I would always ask for the mummy books, just anytime I saw a mummy, I was just oh, that's so fascinating. Anything surrounding death, I just always found very intriguing.
Yeah. So those are big words for us. Give us a definition. What's anthropology for people that don't know? I don't personally know exactly, so. I
don't even think anthropologists know what anthropology is.
Okay. So do you know what it is?
I even took a class in it in college, and I have no idea what it was.
Yeah, because they themselves do not know.
I Googled it, but I want to know.
Well, what Wikipedia will tell you is it's the study of humans, or maybe sometimes you'll find humanity. I do not agree with that. I can only tell you what I don't agree with because I've been even grappling with a definition for a very long time. Because if you look at, psychology, any type of social science, it is the study of humans. But the weird thing about anthropology is that it can also include, study of chimpanzees because it can inform how we look at, human evolution, human behavior and things like that. So it isn't really strictly the study of humans. And if you think of humans just as Homo sapien, Well, that doesn't really work, because if you look at paleoanthropology, it goes all the way back to Ardipithecus, which is what we consider to be like the first branch off from chimpanzee. That's not human. Like, I don't even know what that is. It's some hybrid in the middle. And there's all these other different hybrids and like branching offs. And so it's a very interesting field of study. And I like to include in my definition is like studying of the past. If we just want to stick to human study of humanity, past, present, and future of humanity, I think has to be included in that. Because if you look at psychology, you're looking at a present human being. You're not saying, okay, well, according to this person in like 1800, like I'm going to diagnose you or look at you through that lens. Like that's just not true.
But they diagnose kind of the stuff that happened maybe not that far back, but like in their past a little bit, no? Or no?
Well, it's you're dealing with a very present, like that person is right in front of you. Whereas with anthropology,
I get you what you mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
like you're dealing with dead, alive, and to be determined. In terms of, and you're dealing with a lot of very nebulous, abstract notions like culture. I can't touch culture like I can touch this book. And psychology, it's like, okay, well, the most tangible thing is the brain, I suppose, and anthropology typically gets conflated with sociology, and that is a very present-oriented field of study. But anthropology just goes a little bit deeper, and it tries to answer the question, if this were to be my definition, it'd probably be the definition, is, what does it mean to be human? What has it meant? What does it mean right now? And what will it mean in the future? And so that's what I like to define it as. That's a very roundabout way of saying that.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, but there's 4 branches. There's linguistic, there's physical anthropology, which is where you can get paleoanthropology, so study of ancient hominids, chimps, primates. You got cultural, then you got archaeology, which is probably the most famous one. Indiana Jones being an archaeologist, but not really, because he destroys more things than he saves. But those are the 4 branches, and understanding human culture and society in many different contexts. So
that kind of goes hand in hand with what you do, right? The marketing stuff, because you gotta the human behavior. I guess you gotta, I don't know, to a point you got to be able to know and understand it. I guess to be able to create the right marketing or the right target, whatever they're trying to do in their stuff, right?
Yeah, so in cultural anthropology, which is where I started segueing at the end of my college career, I guess you would say, is how I look at marketing. That's like my frame. And I use kind of my own flavor of cultural anthropology, and a word I like to describe how I approach things is a German word, Zeitgeist. And Zeitgeist is literally translates to period of the time. It's a very common word in the English language, and people use it quite frequently, and I think it's a great word. And so cultural anthropology it does get at the zeitgeist of the era. And the tricky thing about culture is you can't touch it, like I said. And even people who are living within their own culture don't even really fully understand like what kind of things are influencing their day-to-day life or thought or action. But at the end of the day, nearly everything is cultural. I mean, you understand it when you go to a different country, like, oh, they do things differently here. And then you come back and you're like, okay, well, I'm back to normal. It's like, well, it's not really normal.
Back to
it's
reality,
just a different way of doing
it.
things. And, the theories behind, why different cultures emerge and how they emerge, that's a whole other layer that I won't go to. But with marketing, we use a technique called ethnography, which really is just like a fancy word for like talking to people and understanding them over a long period of time. So,
like with communication, do you mean? Or what do you mean? Or what exactly?
So I wrote my honors thesis on Black Republicans. I was very fascinated by all of that. And what that means is that I selected 25, I think it was, individuals, and I talked with them over a long period of time to fully understand, who they are and why they act the way that they act and maybe what was influencing them. to think that way. And, you know, you look at focus groups in politics, right? Or like polls, like you get a call on your phone to answer a poll. That's just like very quick. Like that's just a very quick snapshot of a person.
If I answer them.
If you do.
They usually call. I didn't answer
I don't know why you would, because it's dumb. But yeah, those don't really, I mean, people have been thinking about, or just asking themselves the questions like, you know, why are the polls so off? Yeah, like there was a Trump phenomenon in 2016 where people didn't want to be honest with their feeling because there was so much shame, you know, surrounding that. But I think that we're in a period of time now that those classic data collection methods just simply don't work anymore. We're in a very strong cultural, societal, political shift in this country that a simple like snapshot poll or focus group just simply cannot capture. And I think most people really don't, they understand that there's a change happening, but they like don't understand why or like how, like it's happening. You know, why do they feel what they feel? Where are they heading with that? Like, who are they going to vote for next time?
Yeah.
Like,
what are some solutions you think to that? Like, that there could be, you know?
Well, I think, like, ultimately, I think, you know, I think that there needs to be more understanding. Like, the political pollsters, let's just use Colorado as an example. The Trafalgar Group should be, like just completely, like, it should be out of business. Because if you look at those polls, they had Heidi Ganahl, like, within 2 percentage points of beating Jared Polis. They had Joe O'Dea, I think, like, 1% within striking distance of Bennett. Like, that's just complete bullshit. And you look at all the other polling polls, and they were completely wrong. And I just don't think that the polls can adequately capture what people are feeling. It's extremely complex. And so, getting back to anthropology,
who are those funded by though? That's the big question. Like,
it depends. You know, sometimes the parties fund them and use them as like
exactly
marketing.
So that's where I'm going. Like, they fund it, so it's like they put it to their benefit, obviously.
Oh yeah, and yeah, it's a completely biased sample. In anthropology, it's probably one of the most subjective social sciences, which is where we get into trouble. But I just don't know if you can remove that subjectivity. But, you know, to kind of going into a more long-form discussion with people and really trying to understand them over a long period of time, I think is absolutely critical. And when I'm sitting with someone, whether it's with marketing or, you know, trying to understand their culture or whatever, you have to look for so many subtle cues that they themselves don't understand or know that they're using in terms of words, enunciation of words, where they're looking, how their body language is. Are they closed? Are they open? Are they nervous? Like when they do this, like they're super nervous. And those are, you know, ways that you can get at, you know, what either resonates with them, makes them nervous, or so what I'm trying to say is with marketing, that still applies. So when I'm thinking of like a brand, right? Like how do we make a brand for somebody? You obviously don't want to make a brand that they can't resonate with, because at the end of the day, it has to be theirs. It's not going to be mine. I'm not going to be the CEO of your company. And so when I sit down with somebody, I say, okay, can you just talk about anything? Yeah, it's like, can we just start talking? Let's just start having a conversation. And that doesn't mean I just sit there and I'm like, Like I engage in kind of almost a rambunctious kind of conversation with them. And sometimes I'll say, hey, stop. Did you know that you just use like this word like almost 15 times now? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, like, let's go down that rabbit hole, because it seems like you have an affinity to that word. And so you're really trying to pull out like some of these elements that people just have always used or for whatever reason, and they have an affinity for. And then I use that to frame like the entire brand around that person or thing.
So how important is branding for like a person, I guess, like a person or business or whatever it is, you know?
I think it probably depends on the business. In politics, I think it's everything. If you do, and this is where I'm using just Colorado Republicans as my punching bag. It's deserved.
Throw a couple kicks in there too, not just punches.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Like,
Yeah, well, it's especially important in politics because it's no matter how good your policies are and stuff, it's always going to be a popularity contest.
yeah, and you have to be able to distinguish yourself, and I'm more than happy. Okay, let me give you a few examples.
Just so you guys know, we're talking about this. She's a political consultant, so she knows. Me and Eric, we just sit here and talk shit, but she's actually a political consultant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
And so let me just use a couple of examples. Some nationally, and then I'll bring it back to what I've done locally. Nationally, some of the best branding has been done by Obama, was a big one. That was purely an exercise in effective branding and marketing. That's because you're talking about a guy who was barely in Congress for like 2 minutes, who suddenly shot up to be president very, very quickly. And then you look at Trump. He is probably the best expert in branding. I mean, I'm not saying I have an opinion on, I don't want to get into how I feel about him personally, but I'm just telling you, like, the guy's a damn good brander. Like, you know exactly, like, what are his issues? Like, name some of his...
His fucking hair, the first one, for sure.
I mean, that is a form of branding, but in terms of, like, political issues, like, you know, what was he saying the first time around in his presidential campaign?
He was like talking shit about like, the Mexicans and the women and all this stuff.
But, like, think about, like, build the wall.
Yeah.
You know? Throw Hillary Clinton in jail.
Yeah.
Like,
she's crooked. She's just, yeah, so there's...
Crooked Hillary.
Yeah.
Right, and he's, you know, lying Cruz, like, for lying Ted Cruz. Make America great again. Like, that's just very effective marketing and branding. We can disagree with the result of that.
It also helps when you're loud.
Yeah, it really helps when you're loud and rambunctious and just don't know how to stop tweeting.
Yeah, so that's the whole point. I think the whole point too, like to circle it around is like marketing is to get attention. Like technically, at the end of the day, you want attention. That's what it is. It's just that he was getting bad attention, you know. I guess.
Yeah, and he
good attention because he won one time, but bad attention the second one. But
yeah, no, it doesn't. With branding, we have to be careful. It's like, yeah, it's a great foundation. It can help you get like maybe 50% of the way there. But branding, I think I've probably fallen into this trap personally, and I've learned my lesson from it. Branding can't carry you over the finish line. Like, to rely on it like overly, I think is a very bad move, especially in politics. Like, oh, my website looks great. Like, I have great issues. Like, really like snappy yard signs. But at the end of the day, if it's not a great candidate and they're not a good messenger, you can have the best branding in the world. It's just not going to get you over the finish line. Andrew Yang is a very perfect example of that, where he's the UBI guy. He had some fantastic marketing, where universal basic income, that was his thing. You know, math, you know, make America think harder was like his acronym, I think. And everyone would go up to him and be like, oh my God, you're the UBI guy. Like, I love that idea. And he'd go to his website and he had literally 200 solutions listed on his website. He was the idea guy. Like, that's really neat. I really appreciate that kind of candidate. But that got him 50% of the way there. He didn't even really land a single delegate. And actually, coincidentally, the only place where he got the majority of votes was in the city of Boulder. Because the city of Boulder likes people like that, which is why I like Boulder. So my point is like marketing, branding, super important, like really awesome. But if you don't have like the right people, the right candidate, or like a great product, that shit's not gonna sell.
just like in anything, not just like political stuff, but just like anything, like it can only do so much for you. But it doesn't do the whole thing. It won't do everything.
What I will say is that it makes the message more digestible. So, like, for example, if I have candidate A with, like, really great branding, and then candidate B with not very great branding, and let's say that they're, like, really pushing their message, out there, willing to bet that the voters will more than likely be more friendly and open and accepting to candidate A with better branding rather than with candidate B, because you've already told them how to feel about you. That's a big deal. You've already told them what to think and how you are as a person. And so I had this happen a lot in Boulder County, where they would go up to like this candidate I was helping, and they would be like, "Oh man, we really like your website. Like, tell me more." Like, that's a perfect example, rather than just like nothing. It's like they don't even
Yeah.
know where to begin with you. So if they just see some like gun-toting, American flag waving, whatever, they're gonna be like, "Yikes!" Like as a person, I mean. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've kind of like touched the base on it like a little bit. But I mean, we can just like kind of get right into it with midterms just being done a couple of days ago. By the time this goes live, it's probably a little under a week. But let's just get like a little recap going on that, because as many like people, like not even like in Colorado, but like across the whole nation, they were expecting like this red wave to come in, and it really didn't end up happening.
We're here to hear it was a sprinkle.
It was, yeah, I heard it was a little sprinkle of it. And it's interesting too, because how you were saying that like branding only gets you there halfway. When I was doing like research on like the candidates and who to vote for, I would look at the websites. Quotes like Republicans have really nice looking websites. They have great videos and stuff, compared to the Democrats, who didn't have really anything on their websites. And it's like, cool, they have really good branding, but then they ended up getting their asses kicked. So like, how does that even work?
that's exactly right. So, are you talking about just Colorado? I'm guessing when you were filling out your ballot with looking at the websites and all that.
Yeah, just Colorado.
So, okay, where do I begin with that? First of all, let me just get at this red wave concept real quick. They oversold it. And so, of course, it's like high expectations leads to disappointment.
Yes,
which is why,
it's like what we were talking about earlier. Like, who's funding it? Who's saying it's going to be great? So,
yeah, and one of my favorite political commentators was talking yesterday, and what people really wanted, which is why I think they're so upset, is a sense of justice from what they have been put through because of COVID, schools, indoctrination, all the crap that they've been put through for like the last 4 years. They wanted the Senate so they could see Dr. Fauci up there just getting like eviscerated by Rand Paul. Like they had probably like this dream of like Dr. Fauci being let off in handcuffs, and they want to see that happen. Like they know that a grave injustice has been done. Like they know their country's slipping away. So when you have that and then you don't like get that, man, you just take that super personally. It's just such a big bummer to put that lightly. And so now they can't get that sense of justice. And when that happens, it gets kind of scary. You know, when people don't feel like they can achieve a sense of justice, what do they do? Well, that's how you get January 6th. Frankly. Like,
yeah.
they saw some things that were amiss. I don't necessarily agree with the scale of which they were talking about, nor endorse their actions or what have you. But when people can't achieve that justice, they take it into their own hands in a rather scary way.
It's because it's like a interesting way, because I guess the way to do it it's by like you voting, you get this person out. Everybody cries and bitches all year, and then when it comes down to do stuff, like nobody really wants to do anything, you know. Because if it really was that bad, you know, you see a lot of policies in different places, and they're not great. I don't think they're great. And a normal human being would not be like, yeah, give me more of this, honestly. But I guess maybe there is some, or I guess there is, because it kind of went that way. But the problem I have with it is just like everyone bitches and complains, but when it's time to do something, nobody does anything. So then it's like, it's fine, but just stop bitching and complaining. That's like my thing on it.
It's because people say that your vote doesn't matter. There's like millions and millions of people in like the state or the nation. So like, oh, one vote's not really gonna fucking matter. But when you tally up everybody fucking saying that, then it ends up being like a big chunk of people who end up not voting, and their vote actually does fucking count.
But because I think people are skeptical of the voting stuff. It's not going back to fucking 2020, but they're skeptical. Like a lot of states right now, they're still going. They're like,
Maricopa's a disaster.
They're like, oh no, it's probably going to be, what were you saying, till Christmas or something.
Yeah.
On some, like in Arizona. Yeah, and then Georgia, they're going to have to. So it's
cancel.
Like, how? We have all this technology. We can go to I don't know if we can go to the moon, but we can go out of space. We can do all this stuff. And we can't count a couple votes. Like, there should be some sort of system that just does it right away. Like, you can literally tweet something from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, this is coming from this.
You can't count some votes in a couple of days. Like, come on, dude.
Well, yeah, even in like the Civil War era, where like the technology was like pretty much non-existent, they could count all the votes within a week.
Yeah.
Which is insane that we can't get some shit figured out to do it faster and easier for everybody.
What do you think, Scout?
Yeah, so I just usually like to focus on Colorado because any good anthropologist realize that if you haven't situated yourself in that culture, you probably shouldn't say much about it. So I can't really speak to other states because that makes me very nervous. But with Colorado, it's a very unique state. It's worth going back to 2016 presidential results and looking at the percentage of the libertarian vote in the presidential race. Do you happen to... Did you happen to see that?
No, not really.
Mm-hmm. I didn't get into politics until like literally like this year.
Understood. Okay.
We started kind of a little bit more once COVID started going on. We're just like, what the fuck is happening? With all this shit.
Yeah, so did a lot of people. But I'm gonna get the exact percentage wrong, but it was very significant. Obviously, Hillary Clinton won the state, but it was really nothing to brag about because I believe it was more than 10% of the vote went to a libertarian. That was the only state in the nation where people said, I don't want Hillary, I really hate Trump, but I'm going to go libertarian. That is Colorado in a nutshell right there. And Jared Polis, say what you want about the guy, I think he's a brilliant political strategist. He is really admirable when it comes to tactics, being a statesman. I really do not agree. I really do not agree with how the Republicans have labeled him. It's extremely, I think it's actually kind of disgusting. Like the King Polis thing, I think is stupid.
Do you think it's kind of, they just see and then they're like, oh, he's a Democrat, he has this, and they start slamming him on other stuff? That's like what Eric was saying. It's more
he's a Democrat.
A popularity thing. They're like, I'm a Republican, and just because he's on that side, I might agree with him some stuff, but I'm not going his way because he's a Democrat. Like,
I think he is probably the smartest kid in the classroom, and I view some Republicans just bullying him just because of that. Like you're in school, like someone's like succeeding in a classroom, like, like having all these great things happening. There's always those people in the back who are like, God, I fucking hate that guy, but I don't know why, like, but he's so great and all that. Like, it's literally that. That's what, because I remember just even a couple days ago, I was with a group of Republicans. Like, there's one, you can criticize him all you want on policy, okay? Like, that's totally fine. But to criticize him because he's gay, like, oh, did you know that he actually met his boyfriend under, like, the train tracks? I don't give a fuck about that. Shut up. Like, you sound pathetic. And this is exactly how losers talk. And that's the Republican Party in Colorado. They talk like they're losers, and they are losers. Like, and I know that's extremely mean, but when you're in this kind of situation and you have, like, these people have nothing to show for anything that they've done. Like, I think the Republican caucus absolutely sucks, and I think the consultant class absolutely sucks, and I think even down to, like, the activist level, the Republican Party has let some very dubious actors in who still question the 2020 election, who believe that Tina Peters actually won even though she lost by, like, 15%. It's just so mind-boggling. Did you hear about Tina Peters, the Secretary of State?
No, I didn't.
Lord. A huge election denier, and ended up with a couple of charges. So she, like, the FBI came into her house, and it was a whole thing. I don't really want to go down that election
that
denial.
rabbit hole.
Like, that just kind of freaks me out a little bit.
But no,
like,
with that whole thing that you're saying, like, yeah, when they're saying stuff about, like, Polish or whatever, it's like they can't find anything else just bring up, so they start bringing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of how politics are. They're just going to start pulling everything out. They're just going to want to talk shit about anything.
Well, it doesn't help that he had the meat out. There was like you to not eat like any meat when like in a state that's like the agriculture and all that stuff is like a big kind of deal, and it's like
I agree.
It's like that doesn't really help his popularity, and most of like rural Colorado is like tends to be more Republican because they support more of like the agriculture and all that stuff. And then he's kind of going against it, so it's like, all right, let's fight back.
And then that's where it gets fishy. It's like, who the fuck do you believe? Because I want to say, don't quote me on it, but it's probably been like 3 months ago. He was in Wiggins at the the meat locker, you know, visiting them like, hey, you know, that's cool. Yeah, we support you guys. Yeah, with the meat and all this. What the fuck, you know? So that's like, just tell me. I mean, not everyone's like that, but me, I'm just like, just tell me straight up. Are you in it? Are you in for it or not? Like, you know, there's a lot of foods I don't like, but I'm not gonna be like, hey, don't do this because I don't like it. You know, Eric knows I don't like onion, but if you guys want to eat onion, go ahead, eat all the onion you guys fucking want. You know? But it's like stuff like that. You know, it starts getting.
That's interesting too, because like the meat was more just like out there in public and everybody knew about it. But I doubt many people knew about him coming to Wiggins and doing that.
No, I didn't even hear about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
it's
was
a
out
long
here.
drive, okay? Like from Denver, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a ways out here. So that's good, right? We're away from the bullshit, right?
Yeah. So Jared Polis is like a perfect example of effective politicking, marketing, statesmanship. Again, leave the personal
Stuff out.
Oh my God.
Whoever he likes and shit, that doesn't matter. Take that out of the equation.
Yeah, and guess what? Colorado doesn't like that. Otherwise, they would have voted for Trump. Coloradans typically like boring. You look at Hickenlooper, Mark Udall, even Jared Polis. Like, I mean, the guy walks around wearing his tennis shoes. Very Colorado. That's what I do. I'm like wearing my Birkenstocks with socks right now. Like, I'd show up to a professional meeting in this. Like, you know, like, and he does too. Like, he shows up to, like, you know, conventions or whatever, just like, it's very bolder. And, you know, we like that. We don't want flair and, pompous or whatever. We're just kind of a very, like, laid back, like, oh, you look like you would hike a 14er, you know, like, I'll vote for you, whatever. And so that's what people typically like here. So Trump is, like, way, like, out of even the question when it comes to, like, the type. Even, like, the Colorado Republicans in 2016 did not vote for Trump in the caucus. It was Ted Cruz. I mean, Trump was, like, really disliked among the Republican caucus, mostly because he thought it was rigged. Shocker. I didn't see that coming. But Jared Polis is really interesting because when he ran in 2018, right out of the gate, he stated, I am for free kindergarten for every single parent in this state. He won that election the minute he said that. I didn't hear shit from Walker Stapleton. I don't know what he ran on. Lower taxes. No more regulations. Boring. Who cares?
Who doesn't run on that?
Even Jared Polis runs on that.
And then nothing ever happens.
Yeah, and guess what? Jared Polis, like, let's remember, he used to be a libertarian. He, you know, would show up to the Boulder County Libertarian Party.
So do you think he's more maybe just like in the middle? But like, if we're being completely honest, you have to choose a side if you want to win. I think it's bullshit. You shouldn't. You know, they always have you're running as this or you're running as this. Like, how much of a difference would it be if there was no parties at all?
So,
like, say that there's no Republican. Say just like here, there's no Republican, there's no Democrat. It's just 3 people are running and vote for who you want.
So Jared Polis is a unique thing. The blueprint is very well worth reading. It shows how Jared Polis and Ted Trumpa and a few other Democrats took over the state and made it blue and how it is today. And Jared Polis, in that book, it states that, Colorado used to be Republican. And back in those days, and we're talking like early 2000s, like late 1990s, the Republican caucus in this state was really not pro-gay. We're talking about a time when even Democrats and Republicans opposed gay marriage.
Yeah, pretty much
that was
everywhere,
a big deal.
I think, not just
yeah.
Yeah.
And so Jared Polis looked at that and he said, well, you guys don't want me here. I mean, fuck you guys. So he went over to the Democrats because at that time the Democratic Party in Colorado was a little bit more amicable to him as a person. So he's a very unique case in terms of like why he's there. And speaking broadly to Colorado, it's my opinion that it's a left-leaning libertarian state. So how else do you explain that we always vote for a pro-choice abortion measure and always vote to reduce taxes? That's left-leaning libertarianism. And that's why Jared Polis, who's very smart, came out like 2-3 weeks ago, and Heidi Ganahl was just like salivating. She was like, "Oh, please, like say that COVID vaccines are mandated for kids." Like, and then he came out and he said, "No, I'm not going to mandate COVID vaccines for kids." Libertarianism, right there. He's extremely smart, and that's how Colorado lands.
So do you think the Democrats were like kind of like, oh, like we already know it's more of like a progressive Democrat push for like the vaccine stuff, the closing of everything.
Well, Colorado really wasn't doing too much of that. Jared Polis was even commended by John Caldera of the Independence Institute, a conservative policy center, for how he led Colorado through. Stuff? I mean, he'd closed it, but it was not nearly for as long as other states, and he kept things relatively open. I mean, we could have done much worse. I mean, he was not like Gavin Newsom out in California at that restaurant without a mask on. He just didn't do stupid crap like that.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of walked the talk and just said, you know, hey, we advise, you know, like, rather than just like, you know, I force you to do this. It could have been so much worse, and he led the state very moderately on COVID closure. And, I mean, John Caldera wrote a really fantastic editorial on Jared Polis and how he handled it. Worth reading, by the way.
I think just Colorado is just a very interesting state because how I see it is you got two sides of it. You kind of look at it as urban Colorado and then rural Colorado. You could look at it like that, or just mountain side Colorado, and then just in the plains over here where there's just a completely different way of style and way of life. I mean, it's kind of hard to just gauge what's kind of better for the state because half the state is rural, the other half is more urbanized, and most of the population does live in the urbanized part. But then, like in rural Colorado, is like where most of like the agriculture is at, where like all the money is pretty much made.
Well, look at what's happening to Lauren Boebert right now, just to poke a little bit of a hole in your argument. She's like fighting for her political life right now. I mean, that CD3 is like a solid Republican district. That's how the lines were drawn even this time around, was to keep it Republican. She's like within 200 votes right now. It's an absolute...
So what's CD3? Like where's like all...
Like Routt County, like we're talking western slope of Colorado.
Okay.
And so it includes Pitkin County, Pueblo, Routt. I'm forgetting a few, but like those are some of the bigger ones. And Lauren Boebert came in with like the Trump wave, like gun on her hip and acting almost like a female Trump. And that just doesn't work anymore, especially in Colorado. People are really sick of it.
I think not just in Colorado, but just more just nationwide.
Everywhere.
It's like if you're coming with the Trump shit, it's like, come on, we're kind of over that. Like, get past it and let's just get more, just something more just moderate.
Yeah, well, we'll see about the country, because I'm not convinced, because I think the despair that Trump noticed is still very much there, and I'm not sure if DeSantis can speak to that. In terms of, I don't think DeSantis can go to Appalachia and talk to those people like Trump did. Just personally, but you know, that's a.
He's not a unifier though either, so that's the biggest thing. And right now, I think we are the United States. I mean,
it's on the name, but are we really?
Yeah, the battle lines are on cultural issues, and they have been for many years. But in Colorado, the cultural stuff just really doesn't fly here. And so with Polis, with the everyday kindergarten for free, that was a huge issue where even my slightly conservative friend was like, do you know how much I spend on kindergarten? Like, every month? And I'm like, what, like $100? Like, I just have no idea. And he's like, no, like, he's like, I have 3 kids. It's like $2,000. And I'm like, how do you find $2,000 when you're paying rent, too? I'm like, that just blew, and this is in the city of Boulder, too. I was like, that just blew my mind. And he's like, yeah, I support it. And I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. And that just spoke to so many different people. And why I'm bringing this up is you have to run on ideas. There's no other way around this, especially in Colorado. We have the highest PhD per capita in the entire country.
Highest what you said?
PhD, like, you know.
Yeah.
We have a lot of very savvy entrepreneurs here. Whenever I go to other states, I always think about just like, wow, Colorado is just a very active, like very intelligent state where I just don't think you can come here with like your cute little slogan and like whip up a crowd like Lauren Boebert would and win. I just don't think that works here. Jared Polis, yeah, he's boring on paper. He looks kind of like a milk dud, honestly, but like it freaking works. like it's just
And it helped him. I mean, he has a lot of money too. I mean, that's a big plus.
That's a big issue. I would have highlighted that if I was running that campaign, is the fact that you can have contributions from people like you and me capped at like a certain amount for governor. But if I have $28,000 billion, I can give literally all of that to myself and run. Man, talk about elitism. Talk about like rich person, walking on in there and buying an election. Didn't Trump do the same thing? At least that's what the Democrats are claiming. Like, oh, rich guy coming in and buying up the election.
I think a lot of them do it, honestly. Like,
yeah.
We're being naive. I don't think if we think that everyone's not, I think they're all doing it.
Oh,
so be like, here, I'll give you some money. Just remember,
just remember this. Yeah, no, that would have been an issue I would have highlighted, because then you can kind of get the progressive caucus on your side who really hates money in politics. And that's a huge coalition in the state. But no, the Republic, I mean, name me fun exercise. Just this cycle, because I know you guys are new to politics. Can you name one idea Republicans had? Or even something that resonated with you? Maybe even from any of them.
I know Heidi was one of her things was to have no income tax, and to just get rid of just having no income tax. You can keep most of your money. But then I also read that Polis kind of had the same thing. They both had like the same idea of getting rid of income tax. Yeah. It's just that she wanted to just get rid of it altogether, and he wanted to have a replacement for it.
Mm-hmm.
What replacement?
It was just like taxing. I don't remember what it was, but it's just taxing somewhere else and then still getting the money from somewhere, just not from income tax.
Yeah, reallocating of funds. And how about you, Monico?
I mean, that one was a big one. A lot of them, I think there has to be something with like what moves Colorado is agriculture and oil. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of oil here. And they're not with the oil, really. Because I worked in the oil field personally, so I know how that goes. And ever since he's been in office, there hasn't been no permit stuff been able to go. Obviously, it's not just him, it's a chain of command. It's not just him that decides. But it has been way tougher, for permits, stuff to be able to get over. And I think that should be one. But the biggest one I thought was the income tax. So you see other places are thriving without it.
Oh yeah, Colorado is actually kind of unique.
So it's like, why, if they're able to do it and they're thriving, like, how shouldn't we be able to do it?
Okay, so now imagine you're living in Denver, Boulder. Would you go knock door to door? Yeah. Yeah, imagine you're a liberal. Like, you've gone to college and studied gender theory.
And have blue hair.
Yeah, just really get in that headspace.
I have a hat on. Don't see my blue hair.
But in all seriousness, imagine you're knocking doors. Would you say, "Hello, I'm Monico with the Heidi Ganal campaign. Would you like to vote for Heidi? She would like to reduce or get rid of state income tax."
Yeah, they're gonna be like, "Get the fuck out of here."
They're gonna be like, "What? Like, you hate like X, Y, and Z? Like, oh, you don't want to fund mental health. You don't want to fund the environment. Like, blah blah blah." They can go down the litany of things that they can hit you with on that. Like that, because why I'm bringing up Denver and Boulder is, yeah, I totally hear like the concerns of this area, totally valid. But the thing is you have to get those votes in like the major urban areas of Colorado. So you go to these, knock on these doors and say, "Hey, I'm here to support oil and gas." People are gonna be like, I've been told that they're like Hitler or something, that they hate the world. And
it's kind of how you present. Like, it's kind of, and that's where it goes with your whole marketing. It's where you present it. It's like, I'm not gonna sell you like, I'm not the whole thing. Sell me this pen. You don't really want to sell them the fucking pen. You want to know more about them.
Did you get that from Wolf of Wall Street?
Huh?
At the end of the movie with Wolf of Wall Street, he said, "Sell me this pen."
Yeah, but have you actually heard like the wolf, the real wolf of Wall Street? The wolf's den?
the actual guy.
The actual guy, and he talks about like, and it's bullshit. Like, you don't want to really sell them this, but they're like, "Oh, right, it's this, no." like, oh, how long have you been in the market for this pen?
Right.
Do you have interest? Like, you have to sell them the idea, and so the person going door to door, they're not fucking really educated on this stuff.
Well,
I
and
think.
yeah, I mean, I would challenge that idea in terms of the average voter. I actually think most voters are very, at least maybe on a basic intuitive level, understand what is wrong. They might not understand like how to fix it. I mean, that's why we elect people, because you're supposed to tell me how you're going to fix it. But I think most people have an idea of like what is wrong, and maybe like a slight idea of like, oh, like what if we try this idea? In my experience with working with voters, like, I think they know what they're talking about. I think they typically have the right intuition on people. Typically. So for whatever that's worth. But there was and like Heidi's branding was like god fucking awful. Like mom on a mission. I don't want to elect my mom to have you tell me like what to do. Like everyone is like, oh my god, mom, like scary. Like it's just not like, I mean, I love my mom so much, but like I don't want to picture her there just like being my mom, like being the governor.
Another thought I had is like, she has kids. It's like she starts to pay attention to her kids and her family, like, and she starts to like run this like pretty stressful jobs.
Yeah.
Like it's quite a bit.
Same thing with Poles. I mean, he has stuff going on too. Everybody does.
Yeah, he actually has kids too.
Yeah,
but,
so it's I guess you can make that excuse for either side.
You could.
But it's like the way they put it out there. Pulse isn't like, oh, dad on a mission. No, he's just like, I'm here doing this.
It's your fucking marketing. That's what we're going to. Is like the market. Yeah,
exactly.
Like mom on a mission. Like when my boyfriend heard mom, he's like, oh, I just think of my mom.
Mom on a mission right now. What I'm thinking, like, sorry, Haiti, but what I'm thinking is like, I got my fucking minivan with the soccer balls and shit in the back, and I'm cruising, I'm hauling.
Like,
no,
who
it's
wants
messed
that?
up. No, it's messed
you're not
up. But
wrong.
like that's the vision when you just literally said that's what I thought. Like, I'm sorry, but that's what I thought. Like,
and mission to do what? That's
I'm
the
saying,
missing part is, yeah, you're mad, you're pissed, but we are maybe going to elect you to do something about it. So what are you going to do about it? Like, God damn it, tell me. And she couldn't tell me anything. It was just, and then what sealed her fate was, and it was even during the primary, somebody, I can't remember which group, I think it was actually the Heidi Ganahl campaign, sent out a mailer, like with President Trump over here, Heidi Ganahl over here, and it just said, Heidi is your MAGA candidate. You're done. And Jared Polis was very smart and put that in every commercial. Bam, 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 she's done. People do not want that here.
I've seen that commercial quite a few times.
See, it left an impression on you.
I never saw it. Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can love Trump, hate Trump, but like Colorado does not love Trump. So, and she was on Steve Bannon's show. She really leaned into that election denial crowd. I have no idea why. I think it's quite curious. I don't know if she's looking for a job or honestly thought that that's what was going to get her to win. I have no idea. But that's that branding thing. Mom on a mission. Like, there's a follow-up to that is missing.
The branding and understanding your market.
Yeah, and Colorado voters really are not that stupid. They're really, really not. They're actually wanting to be talked to like an actual adult. And so when you say, and she got hammered for this. She's, not Kyle Clark, because she refused to talk to him on that debate. She, like, the moderator asked, like, where are you going to make up for the lost money? She couldn't answer. It's like, come on, man.
The lost money from where?
Like, if you were to get rid of the state income tax, like, where would you make up for, like, a revenue stream? Like, where else would you maybe pull from or, whatever? And she couldn't answer it. It was really embarrassing. And in Colorado, like, abortion really drives a lot of people here. And you look at Joe O'Dea. Here's another really interesting example. There's two things I'll say about that. Joe O'Dea was trying to be like that moderate with abortion. Like, oh, I think Democrats go too far, and I also think Republicans go too far. That's fine. But guess what? People don't believe you because you're going to be in the Senate. And I think people would imagine him being like, okay, I really can't honestly believe that Ted Cruz wouldn't twist your arm enough to get you to vote for some kind of abortion restriction. Like, come on. Like, it just was not, like, again, the idiom in politics is if you sit in the middle, you're going to get knocked down by both sides. Perfect example. That's what happened to him. And he should have just gone one way or the other. Just go all the way in. Who cares?
Why do you think the abortion issue is like a big kind of deal for voters?
It always has been in Colorado. Ever since I was a kid, I would say it's always been a huge issue. I honestly don't know why. That would be an interesting anthropological study to go do. Like, why is abortion so big here? And I think it just speaks to that libertarian mindset of don't tell me what to do with my body. I think it just encapsulates that general philosophy that here in Colorado we are very adverse to that. So I think that's part of it.
Because there was two parts of that. So, like, yes, of course, they're saying, don't tell me what to do with my body. But then a lot of them were like, since, like, birth control, you can get it for free, you know, from the government. They wanted, like, a lot of people wanted abortion to be for free, like, you know, for that, too. But then do whatever you want, but don't expect, like, the government to pay for it, too. Like, so that was that. There was those two sides of it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. But, you know, with Joe O'Day, I was going to say something else about Joe. Oh, yeah, Joe. He made a really big political error, too. It's like, what's your opinion of Michael Bennett? Either of you?
I don't know. I don't really got an opinion on him, honestly.
Exactly. Apathy.
Stay out of sight. Just, yeah, it's
Yeah,
better.
he's like a turtle. Like, he's just kind of there and goes in his shell most of the time, but he's still there. And
So do you think that's what kind of helped him win? I guess he's not.
I don't think you can run a negative campaign against an apathetic person, like someone where people have like a lot of apathy for.
Kind of just fires back at you.
Yeah, so like we're in a crowded room, we're at a party, and I've never like really even met that person. I'm like, yeah, they look fine, I don't know. And you're telling me that they're like devil incarnate? I'm gonna be like, what?
Like, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You told me what? Like, it might plant like a little seed, be like, oh, like maybe be careful and like maybe like, you know, like be cautious when you approach them. And then when you finally do, you're like, oh, they're not that bad.
And he's also been in the Senate for a pretty long time, too.
Longest serving senator as of like this election.
So is that good? Do you think they should have limits?
I'm in support
term
of term
limits?
limits, yeah. I don't know in terms of like the structure, in terms of like, okay, how many years for House or Senate.
Yeah, but I think they should have term
No, I think
limits.
it's ridiculous. But yeah, that's the problem with that campaign. You can't run negative against someone who most people don't even know about or have apathy toward. Just be positive. Go out with your own solutions and be positive. You know,
So
upsell yourself.
Going back to like the abortion thing and why I think it was like so like important in this one, is because like the Roe versus Wade case was overturned and returned the control back to like the states and
Yeah.
stuff. So I think people just wanted to ensure that they were gonna have that protection from the state and like here in Colorado, like the people we have in office now have been in support of it. So I think people were just like, let me just get this secure, and then while like shit's going down, and then we could just worry about it later, finding someone else maybe later on down the road.
Maybe, yeah. No, I just don't think that the trust for the Republican Party exists anymore in Colorado. I just don't think so. Because the Republican Party here leaned way too far into Trump. Like, off the deep end. And that was a critical error that they made.
So I mean, if, I don't mind. I don't know if you mind me asking. This whole thing you're saying is pretty much like the Republicans fucked up. So did you lean right this year, left, or how are you?
Yeah, I typically, vote. It usually, like, it's kind of weird. I actually leave a lot of things blank because usually I know the Republican who's running, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would like that. Yeah. Like, I know you a little too well, and so, but I can't really pull the trigger, I guess, for the Democrats, so I just leave it blank, honestly. Jared Polis, I received my complete support, and I probably will get in trouble for that, and I really don't fucking care. He is, he's an incredible politician. I admire it, and honestly, he's pretty moderate. I know that they wanted to dispel, like, oh, he actually isn't moderate. No, you should be lucky you live here.
Do you think he's going? Because there were some rumors of him trying to do presidency. You think?
Yeah, I think they were trying to, put that in certain circles. I don't know.
Because I don't think Biden's gonna If he runs, I don't think he's gonna win.
Dude, he's not running. He's not running. I'm pretty sure he ain't running.
But with
Did you see? There was an interview. I'm pretty sure you saw it, that clip of him.
Where they asked him.
They asked him a question. He's just like, just fucking blank stare for a couple seconds. And this was recent, dude. The clip was so it's like, I don't know, but
I think you're seeing the manifestation of how this will go with John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. I think people feel sympathy, and he does when he said, I can't recall it directly, where he said, I'm in living proof that I can get to the lowest of lows, but like still fight back. Like that's a very American, thing to say. Like that's very much in our culture and our mythology, and people resonated with that. And when you look at Biden, I look at him and I'm like, gosh, I can't. Hillary Clinton was very deserving of hate, in my opinion. I mean, what an ugly, awful person. It just makes me enraged just like listening to her. With Biden, I'm like, wow, that's sad. And I think you kind of saw the result of that this midterm cycle.
I feel bad for him. So,
like,
yeah, I don't think that's. I know what you mean, but I don't know if that's like a solution. It's like you feel bad because you're like, yeah, poor guy.
Well, I'm not going to vote for him because of that, but I think the electorate in general wasn't going to, like, for example, Obama. Tea Party happened in 2010 because, I mean, he's the one who made me lean to the right. I mean, he is probably the primary reason, and people just hated him. I mean,
he was probably one of the best speakers, though. Like,
yeah, but his policies, I mean, my lord. I mean, he dropped more bombs than Bush. I mean, the guy's an absolute warmonger.
But then that's kind of where my thing. I'm just like, I think people should have term limits because in the Senate, yes, president, he's in there, fucking in there in and out 4 years. He had 8 years, but those other people that they're always in, they're not going anywhere. They have those positions, so those are pretty much the people actually doing the stuff. Like, they blame it on this guy, then they blame it on this guy. Yes, but if the president can want to do something, but if these other people don't agree, they're like, you ain't doing that. Yeah,
well, in terms of like, Obama versus Biden, like, people were like motivated to get out and defeat Obama, which is why he dealt with mostly like a Republican Senate and House most of his presidency. People were just enraged by him. With Biden, I can't see people doing that. I can't see people going to their...
You don't think people are enraged right now?
Not at Biden. No. I think they don't know what the fuck is going on. I think people are apathetic. And it's out of their control.
Because I think there's a lot of people that are really pissed, like how everything has been going. Like,
well, I don't see the local Tea Party starting up again. I mean, I remember the Obama years. It was just like protest after protest, and people were like, meetings were like hundreds of people just packed in a room, ready to just take this guy out. Not like that, but like, I mean, some of them were.
Remove him from office.
Yeah, some of them were, I'm sure. Like, I heard of it, and I'm like, okay, like, just chill. But that's not happening anymore.
You don't think so? You don't think it happened with COVID when they destroyed all kinds of shit everywhere?
I'm not... Find me the local group where they can get 300 people in a room willing to go out and knock doors.
No, they weren't in a room. They were fucking, like, everywhere. Like, all the stuff happened with COVID. They're breaking everything down, and, like, we're not just going to arrest people no more. Yeah, that was a state stuff, but, like, there was a lot of shit going on, too. Like, it's not... I don't think it was all just sunshine and roses with Biden either.
No, yeah, totally. But I think people are apathetic, and I don't think people trust... Okay, there's two things. I don't think people trust Republicans anymore because they lean too far into Trump.
Oh, yeah.
That's number one. And number two, I can't think... Okay, the bottom lines are on cultural lines right now. Like, we can talk all day about inflation. Boring. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know it's a really big issue. I'm enraged by it. But I am more enraged about how they are treating our kids in public schools and indoctrinating them and exposing them to certain agendas. And I'm left to wonder what the purpose of those agendas are. Then that, and that's a very cultural thing, like, that's happening there in terms of, like, that's what's in the, anthropology stuff, which is why I'm not currently getting my PhD. I mean, it is just so, like, there's just so much just to use, like, anthropology term, postmodernism, where, truth is subjective, where they even go down to science and say science is objective or subjective.
I think they call that wokeism now.
Yeah, it is wokeism, and that's why Ron DeSantis is being so effective in Florida, going against the woke. But name me, I can't think of a single Republican in this country, other than a few, who ran really hard against that, except for Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't find much. But I'm just wondering, if Trump chooses to not run again, and they got another candidate for presidency in there, do you think that will just kind of eliminate what Trump has done and all the Trump supporters, and then maybe the Republican side won't be so far right that they'll be more moderate?
No, because in politics, what happens usually has ripple effects for decades. We're still living with the Reagan coalition. It's just been added to with the addition of Latinos in that mix, with the addition of classical liberals.
Like in what way? I mean, inform me a little bit.
Well, Reagan brought in the evangelical Christian voters. That was his big thing. The pro-life thing, that wasn't a thing until Reagan, to have the Republican Party be in the pro-life camp very solidly. It used to be kind of a mix in some ways. So we still have that, which is what Trump was doing, which is why he held up the Bible, using it as a prop, super fun, going to all these religious prayer breakfasts and all that. That's why he was doing it. But he also brought in another coalition, which is the classical liberals like me, who just have very liberal tendencies in some ways, but is just so disgusted by the cultural stuff on that side that I just say no to it. And you look at some of the ways that the minorities have moved away from the Democratic Party. Hispanics are, a great example of that. But there has also been some coalitions that have left too. Those moderate Republicans, the Never Trumpers, the neocons, they've left the party, which I think is actually a good thing. I will credit Trump for that. Mm-hmm. But wait, what was your question? It's there to stay is what I'm saying. If something happens in politics, especially of this magnitude, this is a generational thing. This is not moving for a long time.
For a while.
I mean, how long has it been since Reagan? 1980? And then before that it was JFK to an extent. Nixon with his Southern strategy, which I think the Republican Party is still living with. FDR brought the African Americans over to the Democratic Party. Look at where they are now. They're still in the Democratic Party. We're living with this for many, many decades. I think it'll morph and change just a little bit, but I think it's here to stay. So, got to work with it.
But I do think next time around, there's no way I see Biden just staying in there. They get him on a debate stage and just have him talk about stuff, then he'll fall apart and people will be able to see that. And I think just what people want is just a good leader who just solid on where they stand and just not too far this way, not too far this way, but then just is more moderate and just can lead the country.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't like making predictions like that because things can change in 1 minute. We might have a terrorist attack tomorrow. Man, that's going to change the calculus immediately in favor of the Republicans. Usually it does, when some kind of big foreign, event happens. So, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, I think if I don't want to say a certain word. I think if the gender ideology stuff continues as it is, that will also favor a Republican president, and I don't see that slowing down, because I think that is one of the biggest things that is driving people to the right, including my boyfriend. He sees the drag queen shows, and he's like, what the fuck is
especially
going on?
Especially in the Boulder area where you're from.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Do you see a lot of these the just shows even now, little kids show, cartoons, there's a lot of shit. I'm just
they redid Scooby-Doo to just
make
her
modernize
Velma a lesbian, right? It's who cares?
Yeah, lesbian, Shaggy's black.
gives a fuck, dude? Let's go find some monsters, dude. Like, who gives a fuck?
Because like when you look at America and what Trump spoke to and what Obama did not speak to and actually made it worse, is just like this cultural malaise, this despair that has taken over. I mean, you look at the opioid epidemic, fentanyl. We are very unique in the first world with these types of problems like suicides, debt that people have in this country. I mean, we're surrounded by addictions, in my opinion, whether it's, compound interest or, television. It can be a certain addiction like media. And I just think the Americans driven mad by it. And I don't think we're healthy at all. You look at how many, for example, like most women who are on, they did a poll, I can't remember who did it, like most women who are on like SSRIs, I believe is the term, or like, medication to cure depression. They're in the Democratic Party, which I find very interesting. But if you look overall, a lot of, the rate of people taking those is going up. That's extraordinarily sad.
I think it's a bigger agenda than just like parties. It's a pharmaceutical thing where you got billions, trillions of dollars.
And that's exactly if you look at COVID, the thing that I found hilarious about the whole thing, and I use hilarious lightly, just, I guess, ironic. Haha, funny, people are dying. Is that the Democrats who had Bernie Sanders, like, whip up, like, a lot of, their people, and are, like, now the most pro-pharmaceutical industry people ever by giving billions of dollars to Pfizer and Moderna. Like, these are people who told me my entire life, like, yeah, we hate the pharmaceutical industry, like, the government shouldn't fund them, and what do? Just like that. And on the Republican side, I've actually seen it become more populist and actually what I call true progressivism, not this AOC bullshit. I've actually seen it become rather anti-corporate, which I find freaking hilarious. It was a social media issue that, like, really started that, by the way. Where, Twitter or Facebook started censoring Republicans. Mm-hmm. And I think Republicans finally started waking up like, oh, corporations are not, like, capitalist. They're not your friend. They're actually really evil, and they're, like, really filled with woke people. We hate that. And so I find that, to honestly be very fascinating. And I think that's how the coalition, I think that's how it's going to be, how 2026 plays out. 2024, plays out is along those lines, like traditionalist versus like more populist. And you already start seeing DeSantis playing with that a little bit. He was probably the most anti-vaccine mandate governor in the country. Mm-hmm. And he was really questioning a lot of this corporate stuff that was going on with Pfizer and Moderna. So anyway, I don't even remember how we got there.
No, yeah, but I think media for sure is one of the biggest things that moves, one of the most dangerous things that moves for bad, good or bad, it can be very, take a big effect on all that stuff. But tell me, so what's next for you, Scout? What do you got going on here? You got some stuff, right? Wrapping up that you're doing here in the next few weeks?
I've forgotten everything that I'm going to do.
What was it again?
Yeah, shucks. So I'm going to be opening up I don't want to call it a candidate school, because if you want to be like an activist or training, just even like if you just even want to understand politics better, I have some of the best Boulder County people, politicos, people who have actually been elected and won. We're going to be training a group of people to become better activists or better candidates, and maybe just understand politics on a deeper level, because that kind of stuff isn't happening. So I really want to start training people in how to think about solutions, like real solutions, not just like, I want to lower the state income tax, like just run on that, because that's just so utterly uninspiring. And so if you look at the candidates I've run, and man, conservatives like really hated one, but she still did really well. One of my candidates ran on bringing the Hyperloop to Longmont. Really off the wall idea, where she thought that the affordability crisis in Colorado was basically a transportation crisis. And she convinced people of that. And it was really, and she's conservative, and she was like advocating for that. And I thought that was awesome. My other candidate, who is now Mayor Pro Tem in the county, in one city in the county of Boulder, we ran on bringing municipal internet to Lafayette. The same thing that Longmont did. And people would come up to him and be like, hey, you're like the internet guy. Like, that's perfect. Or like with Diane, she was the Hyperloop girl. Oh, you're the Hyperloop girl. That's like top tier branding right there, when you can associate an idea with a face. Like, man, that's just such a beautiful thing to work on and to actually see work. So we're going to be training people to think like that. And I am not interested in training people to open up an Ayn Rand book and be like, okay, do that. That doesn't work. And so we're going to be training people to think a little bit off the wall. And
that's good.
So it can be like the craziest, stupidest idea ever, but maybe it'll work. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we're going to be working on that. And I'm really excited for that. And my 7 years of politics, I think, has led me to this point. And we're just going to see what next year brings. I'm going to be focusing on Louisville and Longmont for city council elections. So that's going to be my focus primarily.
So if people want some more info on that, where could people get some? Where can they contact you?
They can just contact me directly. Yeah, I try to stay a little bit hidden sometimes, because I've been burned by being a little bit too outward facing. This is very weird for me.
But like where, like what,
Just like
message,
like on Facebook
or
email.
what, or what do you have? Email?
Just email.
Email's the easiest.
scout.ennis@gmail.com. If you're really, really inspired by this and my rambling.
Really inspired to go.
But, just to be clear, like, not, like, I am the only consultant I can confidently say that has won in Boulder County, that has elected right of center candidates successfully and had really awesome results. And it's kind of like not up until this point, it's like my little secret that I'm just like, oh,
good.
like we did that.
Yeah, keep it a secret.
But, now I kind of want people to start coming out and be like, oh, okay, hey, like, how do we work with, the reality is that the Democrats are not going away in Colorado, not until at least 2026. So how do we form coalitions and actually work with them and gain just a little bit of a seat at the table? Because right now we don't have a seat. And frankly, I would like a seat, because I think Colorado does favor balance in our elected offices. I really firmly believe that, if they are actually given good choices to vote for. I do firmly believe that. And so how do we work to make that happen is really my goal.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. You got some good stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come out here and chat with us for a little bit. If you guys want more information about her, we'll put her email down there in the description. But yeah, you guys, if you guys like it, just share it with one other person. That's the only fee we have here on the show. And I'll leave you guys with our motto here on the podcast, which is an act of rebellion is to question.
Underrated,
Thank you.
we
Thank you guys.
underdogs, underestimated.
Thank you.
Underrated.